Do, do, do. There we go. Thank you for, let's see, looks like two attendees that are with us at the moment, slowly coming up as well. Thank you all of you for being here on time. We're going to start around maybe 3:31 just to let a few more folks trickle into this event. Uh, Hopefully, you're noticing that we're sharing screens this time around, so we have a nice presentation prepared for you. And of course, we'll send out the slides and all the pertinent details of anything that we share throughout the presentation at the end. But yeah, good for you to know that you're in the right room if you wanted to join us today for our session. So once again, thanks for being on time, and we'll start here just in a couple of seconds. Let's see. Always nice to see some familiar faces on the attendee list. So once again, thank you for joining us in one of our career readiness partner sessions. For those of you that are new, we typically host about two of these every quarter as a Career and Internship Center. We want to make folks at the UW Seattle campus aware of anything that's happening within our services, within our center, any new resources that we have, or any new news that we want to share. So we always try to, once again, inform everybody about what's going on because it does take a village to help our students find their career passions. So I guess, Lindsay, if you're ready, I see the smile and the nod. Yeah, 3:31, and we got close to over 20 attendees. So yeah, we can dive right into today's session. Once again, thank you all for joining us today. We'll do quick introductions if you aren't aware. My name's Luis Santiago. My pronouns are he and him, and I get the pleasure to serve as the Associate Director of Coaching Operations at the UW Seattle's Career and Internship Center. And if you're a regular participant of these webinars, you know that sometimes it's just a one-person show, but luckily today you get two folks. So I'll let Lindsay go ahead and introduce herself.
Thanks, Lois. My name is Lindsay Smith. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Associate Director for the Employer and Community Connections team in the Career and Internship Center. So I'm the counterpart for Lois in the center. I'm really happy to be here today.
Excellent. Yes, we're both happy to be here because once again, we know that it takes a village. We do a lot of work in our office to try to inform students in terms of what things they should be aware of to make sure they're finding their career goals once they get closer to graduation. But we know that we can rely heavily on our partners, like our faculty and staff, that can help spread the word. And we figured it being the spring quarter, we want to make sure that folks are aware of the topic that we are presenting on today, which is understanding the job market and the internship market and what it looks like for our college students and specifically for our UW Huskies. So we have a little bit of detailed facts that we want to go over as a group. We'll have the slide deck that we're going to be presenting in the next 30 minutes or so. Just as a reminder, anything that we typically share in these sessions, it's being recorded. It'll be sent to you, the link of the recording at the end of the presentation. Because there is a slide deck as well, we'll make sure to include the slide deck for everybody. So you're welcome to take notes, but don't fret if we skip over a slide or we go through a slide too quickly. You will be able to review that information afterwards when we send it to you via email. You can also view this and any of our previous sessions that we've done throughout the year on our staff and faculty page on our website, which I'll make sure to link to in the email that you'll receive. So I guess with that being said, Lindsay, we can dive into our content, which once again is helping all of us here get a stronger understanding of what it is going to look like for our upcoming graduates in terms of really job search, but also maybe some of these current students that might be looking for summer internships. So we're looking at two different sets of data that we want to start off with. First one being what the national projections look like, right? Which was kind of perfect timing because all this information recently just came out such as things from what we typically pull from. So as a reminder, some of you might already be familiar with the resources that you see on the screen, but we typically as a career center look at two primary sources of this type of information. One of which being the U.S. Department of Labor, and that's part of the Bureau on Labor Statistics. And another one is a big partner that we really pay close attention to, the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And why I was laughing, I guess, a couple of seconds ago, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Some of you may have already seen this in the news, but the most recent report came out literally last Friday. So it was perfect timing for it to come out right before this presentation. And it talked about what the job numbers were for the month of March. And once again, these are national numbers. Very robust, over 300,000 new jobs were reported nationwide, which has shown a trend within the last couple of weeks, the last few months, that the economy is doing really well from a job standpoint. Granted, you do see one of the numbers that we're pointing to there, that the vast majority of those new jobs that were added are concentrated in three specific areas. Healthcare, private education is one, leisure and hospitality is another, and government is the third. But still, it's showing that there's good numbers out there, good jobs, even with the unemployment rate still being fairly low, right at 3.8%. So that's amazing to see from a national standpoint. In terms of the other side, and one of the things that our office really pays close attention to are these surveys that are presented to us from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. Because yes, the national numbers are good to see, just to see how overall things are going, but NACE is an amazing organization because it really helps us as career centers at universities connect with the recruiters and the companies that typically recruit college students. So these surveys that occur throughout the academic year for the job outlook typically happen on two occasions. They survey employers around August and September. So then the first half of the report comes out in November. And then the most recent one that just came out 2 days ago is the spring update. And it's the same thing. They are reaching out to employers that are a part of the NACE organization, and then asking them what their job projections are. What is the outlook in terms of what they're expecting to hire specifically for this upcoming class? So from that, we are seeing, I guess the first thing that they're pointing out, a small dip in hiring projections, but that is in line with the fact that 2 years ago, and you see it on the screen at the moment, back in 2022, there was a huge, huge spike in hiring, right? Because obviously after the pandemic in 2020, there was a lull in what companies wanted to do. But then once 2022 came around, they started realizing, oh, there's demand is up again. Let's start hiring more people. So there was a huge, huge, huge spike. So really, that small dip that we're seeing, it's just representative of, because of the fact that there was such a huge push 2 years prior. So it's still a pretty good job market for the upcoming class of 2024, because even some of the other findings, we're seeing a big chunk of them, plus 80%, anticipate either increasing or maintaining their hiring. And over 75 of the employers that were represented in this survey still believe that the job market is either good or excellent from a scaling standpoint that they rated the job market. It is important to note, though, and we'll see this on the next slide, that some of these hiring projections are dependent on industry and region, right? So you can see here from this next chart how some projections in certain industries are still pretty high in terms of what they're anticipating to hire this particular year in comparison to last year, and others are low. Another thing to note as well, this wasn't thousands of employers that are represented in these surveys. Both of these surveys, the fall one and then the one that was just done in the spring, they get about 250 employers, which is really just 20% of the number of employers that are represented in the NACE organization. So there could be other things that are out there that we just weren't aware of because they didn't answer the survey, but still good numbers overall in terms of the fact that a lot of these folks are anticipating good hiring trends for the upcoming class. So, but those are national things, right? I think what's really, really helpful as well, and Lindsay will be able to expand on this a little bit more, it's a look closer in terms of how things are being impacted here with the University of Washington. I'll talk about this here in another slide, so we'll just move forward at this point to talk about some of the data that we're seeing in Handshake. So I will mute. I'll handle the slides, Lindsay, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Thanks, Lewis. Handshake is my favorite topic, so I'm happy to talk about it. So let's dive in, pull some recent data to look at how postings are going. Postings are robust. We like to push against the myth that there's just nothing in Handshake. A lot of times that comes from a student logging in, clicking on the jobs tab, looking at the first 10 and saying, these aren't exactly the thing I want to do. I'm not looking any further. But there are quite a few postings out there. So if we look, this is from this academic year, those are thousands of postings per month. And it's high and it's robust and it's higher than it's ever been at UW. Part of that caveat, one reason why it's get so much higher is because Handshake has shifted their model so that more employers can connect with us more easily and more easily post jobs for students. So yes, the market is good, and Handshake has shifted things so that more employers can post jobs to UW more easily. So those both are true. And the trends follow just what we're used to seeing: September, October high, especially October. And then for internships, January, February is always a peak for them too. And then it starts to taper down. So it's looking good. It really is. Right now there are over 31,000 active jobs in Handshake, just like full-time, part-time jobs. Over 8,000 internships, 300 fellowships, and 116 on-campus jobs. That on-campus job number fluctuates since different departments post at different times. Some will post one post and it'll be for like 20 students. But anyway, if we look at the industries and job functions, they are familiar to what we heard from Lewis. Folks posting in Handshake, the highest volume tend to be government, education, healthcare, nonprofits, higher ed, a lot of the similar industries and corresponding job functions are the top. That does not mean that is all that is in there, for sure. But these 10 for industries and job functions, they're pretty standard across the board. Every month I pull these numbers, and the top for industries, it's really these 10 that fluctuate within the top 5, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, that's where we're sitting right now in terms of jobs and internships in the system. We get about 700 to 800 postings come through a day. And those are jobs, internships, fellowships, on campus, all of those. Career fairs. So between spring 2023 to winter 2024, we hosted 7 career fairs as a center. A lot of other departments, some of you are here, host your own career fair. So this is just for our Career and Internship Center. That's a mix of in-person and virtual. That totals 518 employer booths, and within 87% indicated they are actively for internships, which is great. Really high number are there to hire. Branding and pipelining are important. And so those, employers come for that reason too, but the vast majority are there to look for students and candidates to hire. And then the industry lists who are attending our fairs are also familiar. The industries are familiar too. Those are again for our fairs, the general all industry fairs. Again, those are not the only industries that attend. We do have tech companies. We do have some big corporate names that are of great interest to students, but overall, those are the counts of the industries that come to our fairs. And so, the big question and what's in the headlines and what we hear, anecdotally from our friends, tech, what's going on with the tech, are they ever hiring again? Or is everyone just going to be laid off? Can our students get roles in tech if the big tech firms are still laying people off? Yes, while the top count of postings in Handshake may be for government or healthcare roles, those are only a small part of the 40,500 open positions. So really knowing how to search in Handshake is valuable. So 421 positions came up when I searched just the keyword tech, and that's all different types of job functions. 1,100 positions came up when I filtered by industry of internet and software. And these are just quick examples. And then there's another filter based on your interests, and that brings up the top 50 positions that may be based on your interests, how you filled out your profile. And when I filled mine out to be tech related or software or I tried a few of those, the 50 positions that came up were directly related to that. So based on how a student uses Handshake to search for positions, they can find more than just the government, nonprofit, healthcare, whatnot. I will say also, when the student fills out their profile and their career interests, that feeds the algorithm that Handshake has so that the jobs that post up that appear on the first page in the content web pages of the jobs section of Handshake will be much more related to what they're looking to have for their their next step career or job, along with some of the events and employers that pop up on the feed. So it's within the student's interest to spend some time filling out their profile and make sure it's up to date with what they're looking for, so that Handshake can respond accordingly and provide some of the responses that the students are looking for.
Sorry, I was searching for my mute button there. So thank you, Lindsay. Yes, because once again, national numbers are important to be aware of, but it's also amazing to see how employers are still engaging with our center and our school and our systems and wanting to hire our students. So for those of you that are here wanting to find information to be able to share to the students that you work with, it is safe to say that there are things to find within the Handshake system. Students are able to connect with employers that are looking to hire because they are wanting to hire UW talent. But I think to just follow up with one of the things that Lindsay was mentioning in terms of how students can utilize Handshake, and this falls in terms of how not just a CNIC can help, but how you all can help as well, correct? As career readiness partners. One of the biggest things is going to be literally what Lindsay was just mentioning about Handshake. Letting students know that the more that they update their profile and their career interests using that tool, the better that tool will be for them. So that's one of the things that our career coaches do on a daily basis when we work with students, because as Lindsay mentioned, sometimes they might come in and they think, yeah, I went on Handshake and I couldn't find what I was looking for. Okay, well, let's learn in terms of how it is that you are using it. Let's maybe teach you better keywords to use or better filters to use. Oh, wait, that's right. When's the last time you updated your career interests on your profile page? So knowing the tricks on how to really maximize Handshake is a big part of what we do, and a big thing that we hope our career readiness partners can at least plant the seed with students to remind them of that. So that's one thing. But other things too that might be helpful to know, as a reminder. So any student that will be completing their studies here at the University of Washington at the end of the spring quarter, and then there are alumni and they're so happy that they're maybe done with school, but they might still need assistance in terms of finding that next step career-wise. our office is available to assist with those students for up to 36 months after their graduation. So that way they can still come into an appointment, connect with a career coach, and let's work with them in terms of maybe it is giving them those handshake tips, or maybe it is helping them come up with what your plan B is or what your plan C is if your top tech target company may not be hiring at the moment. So that's another big thing that we do as career coaches is to help students really get a good idea of what they can try to pursue. And that way they can have multiple plans in action in terms of how it is that they can try to find employment. And once again, how they can do that by going to networking events or, applying to different places, going to career fairs. I think I just mentioned, like some of the ones that we have coming up in the very near future.
Yeah, we have, so we had our in-person fair yesterday, in the hub. It was great. We are doing our model of 4 in-person fairs every year and 4 virtual fairs every year. So we have our virtual spring job and internship fair coming up on, April 25th. Registration opens Monday. So on our website, at that link is the list of all of our events. And so our fair is on there too. So we are going to be opening to our summer fairs on Handshake shortly. And those will also be an in-person and a virtual. And Louis, I think that's on the next page. Yes. We're doing an in-person on June 18th. That tends to be a lot of those recently graduated seniors in that, oh no moment, I need something to do. But it's going to be employers really hiring any sort of level of position. It's a smaller fair, but that will be on the 18th. And then we do have another virtual on the 26th. So we still have opportunities for students and employers to connect this spring and early summer as students are getting ready for whatever's next.
One of the other things that I wanted to mention as well in terms of how our office can help with students, and it's one of the slides that I had skipped through earlier, so just bear with me as I go back to, yes, these particular data points that also came from the Job Outlook survey from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. So they asked recruiters what it is that they're looking for when they're looking at candidates, looking at their application materials. Do they still screen students based on what their GPA is? And as you see with the chart on the right-hand side of the screen, that really has been dipping over the past couple of years. It's even less, I believe, in our region of the Pacific Northwest. It's like 22% of employers that really just focus in on GPA. Now, granted, there are still some industries that will always do that. Like I think of accounting and no, like if you're an accounting student, you must have your GPA on your resume because they're gonna want to know that. But the vast majority of companies nowadays are no longer doing that because they've recognized that it's not just the GPA that's an indicator of how well an individual is going to do in the role. It's what skills they're bringing with them, and not necessarily the technical skills from their major, but other skills like the ones that are being represented on the left-hand side of the screen, that left-hand chart. Those are the big skills that you're seeing. I mean, goodness, on the left-hand side of that chart, almost 2/3 of employers that responded are wanting students that have things from analytical to quantitative skills and all the way up. So technical, communication, strong work ethic, problem solving. And so many of those skills are learned at the college classroom in a college setting, whether it's in the classroom or maybe other extracurricular activities, which is where another big part of not only do we help students try to understand how they've developed these skills and how they can articulate those skills in their documents. So we do our best to assist with that, but we also hope that our career readiness partners can also think about how are we helping students understand what are these specific skills that they also need to develop, not just the technical ones from their academics, but are they engaging in problem solving activities in in their classroom and extracurricular activities as well. So that's where, once again, you all come in, depending on how it is that you engage with students. If you can try to also consider how am I getting them to make sure that they are communicating well in the way that I engage with them or something like that, that can go a long way to help students feel career ready. So with that being said, I think that takes us to the end of these slides that we had prepared for today's discussion. Oh goodness, I never mentioned this earlier, but if you did have any questions, please feel free. You can put them in the Q&A feature of chat, but also at this stage of the event, I think there's a way for you to raise your hand and you can be unmuted if you want to just ask through your microphone. Or if there aren't any questions, we can let you out early, have 5 minutes back, because this was supposed to end at 4. But I know Lindsay and I will still stick around just in case if anyone does have any particular questions. As my dog is starting to lose it. So, the joys from working from home. Oh yeah.
Albert asked a great question about our schedule for career fairs for next year. We have them, we have the in-person ones structured out. The virtual ones we're still coming up with. I will find that list and we'll include it in the email that we send out after. It hasn't been published for employers yet, but you all get the sneak peek.
Let's see the next question here from John in the chat. What kinds of myths or misconceptions do you hear from students frequently that we as campus partners can help you dispel? Well, goodness, I think one of the big ones, Lindsay, you touched on it, right? From handshake, where sometimes students, come in and maybe just haven't had someone tell them how to properly use handshake, right? So sometimes they might just go ahead and immediately think, oh, yep, I looked at the first 2 things that popped up and it wasn't really what I want. So there's nothing there. So I know that's one of the big ones that might come up. I think another one too, I guess with the example of like the tech industry, right? So sometimes there may be certain individuals, certain students that we work with that they kind of have, I guess, what I can refer to as tunnel vision, right? So they have their eyes on one particular company or a small number of specific companies and aren't aware of the fact that the role that they want may exist in a number of different places, right? It may even exist in industries that they weren't even considering, but that role is still an important thing in that particular industry. So that might be another thing that could be helpful to help students understand that whatever it is that they might be looking for, unless it's like really, really niche, there's more likely other avenues and other ways to be able to find that. But that's where maybe coming in with a career coach, having an appointment with one of the folks in our office, we can help them get a better understanding. And what I was alluding to earlier of like, okay, you have plan A, but how can we help you understand what plan B, what plan C is? Because more often than not, those routes exist. We just need to help you understand how to get there. So.
Dan asked a great question in the Q&A about applications for those 40,000 postings. That's a great question. We haven't pulled those numbers yet, but I actually just started pulling a report in Handshakes. I'm curious. So we'll include some of that in the email after. But we do, as Dan knows from the past, have robust internship and job of application numbers year over year. So I'll be curious to see. I'll pull some numbers from the past 9 months or so of application data for which job type.
Michelle, I'm noticing I guess the comment that you're seeing there that's posted in the chat about English majors, and I guess some of the stuff that they're looking for. So I do know, and I guess this is helpful to hear as well. So yes, as a career and internship center, we do absolutely love utilizing the tool Handshake because of the wonderful things that it can do. Um, but as career coaches, and maybe it's helpful for me to stop sharing my screen at this point. Um, our career coaches, Handshake isn't the only tool that we utilize with students. So when we're actually working one-on-one with an individual and we're starting to get a better understanding of what are their career interests, what do they feel the skills are that they have, and how they want to utilize those skills in a career moving forward. We'll still check in Handshake to see if some of those things exist, but we are aware of other unique job search tools that would be more relevant for that particular person. And then we'll point them to that. So maybe it's pointing them to um, professional organizations that are specific to the career field that they want to pursue. And then a lot of those professional organizations have job career sites on those pages. I also know on our career interest pages that we have on our website, which as a reminder, there's 8 different career interest pages um, representing various different career fields. We've also tried to put a collection of unique job sites on each of those pages. So if, for example, there is somebody within the liberal arts, but they've identified that they want to pursue something that might be similar within, I don't know, law, government, and policy, or arts, media, and marketing, or something like that. Um, you can go to those specific career interest pages on our website, and there will be a featured resource there of other job sites outside of Handshake in case they're not finding what it is that they're looking for. Um, but yeah, it really then just boils down, I think, to us as coaches trying to work individually with students, really try to get a strong understanding of what it is that they want to bring to the table in a job, what skills they want, what interests they want to have alluded to. And then we try to help them find that if they're not finding that in Handshake.
Yeah, Michelle, it's interesting to your comment. It really depends on who posts in Handshake, right? Like it depends on the employers who come to Handshake, and some some groups who rather post in the professional organizations, or orgs or other areas, ways to directly connect with certain groups of individuals. Maybe they don't want to use Handshake, so it is very interesting about um, about what students will find in Handshake. And it is true that there are a lot of software engineer, biotech, this and that. So they're, like Lewis said, we are not at all saying Handshake's the one place to go. It is not. It is a resource. And I would recommend looking at some of the other options. I'm going to hop to Cameron's question in the Q&A. International students saying that there are no jobs for them. It is rough. So Handshake, I've been advocating for Handshake to update their work authorization fields that employers have to fill out. Right now, it's an optional section, so employers can skip it. But in the student search, it shows that the employer marked not required, that work authorization is not required, or that it's just very nebulous and confusing for students. And so I've been working with Handshake to try to change how they structure the work authorization and CPT, OPT, visa information on their job postings to more accurately reflect what they can offer students, so that students will apply for a job, with a more realistic view of whether or not they can, be employed by that company. So it's a struggle if especially when the person posting the job, they may not know what it means. They may skip it, or they may put the wrong thing down. So there are opportunities in Handshake, and there are multiple ways to search by them. But the trick is making sure the employer knows what they're doing when they're posting. So it's a higher level fight that we're fighting.
If it helps, I also put in the chat another resource that we just gained access to, I'd say almost a year ago now, that is specifically beneficial for our international students, and that's called Interstride. Think of Interstride as another job board specifically for companies that understand what the process is like in terms of hiring international student, understands what all the different lingo is with OPT, CPT, H-1B visas, things of that nature. And there are thousands of job opportunities within that. Now, this is a nationwide database, so I can't sit here and say that there's thousands within this local Seattle community. But if our international students are not necessarily finding exactly what they're wanting to find through Handshake, Interstride is the next best thing. Free for anyone with a UW email. You just have to log in with your UW account, and then they'll be able to navigate through that to see what opportunities exist as well.
There's another Q&A, learning how to better learn the system. So only students can meet with coaches, but there are a lot of Handshake tools on learning Handshake. Everyone can request an advisor account if you want to go in and navigate the tool like a student, and so you can get to know it that way. There are a lot of videos and webinars on learning Handshake as well, so I highly recommend those to really learn all the ins and outs, and we can provide some of those resources too in our email.
And also with I guess as a reminder in the email, and I probably mentioned this at the beginning of the session, all of these sessions that we've done in the past can be found on our staff and faculty page. Gosh, it's even on our YouTube page. So we do have a YouTube channel, and one of the playlists that we have is specifically these sessions. So you'll find a lot of information on our website on these other tools as well. But yes, the email that we'll send out will probably be a good start. So Lindsay, I love it. I know we started the presentation wondering, oh, what questions do we get? These are good questions so far. It's good to see that you all are curious about this. We can hang out maybe a little bit longer to see if there's any other questions that you all might have. But once again, if not, we will send, and Lindsay, I can do that afterwards. We will send a copy of this recording of the slide deck of all the things. And if it's not by the end of today, you'll definitely get it sometime tomorrow. But yeah, any other questions that anyone has, please feel free, drop them into the chat Q&A, and we can go from there. Or maybe we got everything.
You can always email us too.
Yes, that too. Yeah, once we send this follow-up email to this, you can just reply to that email as well and go from there. So excellent. Well, hopefully you all found this beneficial in some way, shape, or form. We appreciate you all hanging out with us for the last like 30+ minutes or so. And yeah, happy Friday, Junior. And I hope you all enjoy your weekend.